We're close though. Yeah, I'm going live a couple minutes early because I had the same issue with the headset again when it's such a stupid thing. So I created 4 of these events and my headset wasn't plugged in when I created the 4 events. So you can't go add your yeah, your mic after. So it kind of gets messed up. We got one person on. We're going to kill a few minutes. We're going to kill a few minutes and let a couple of people get on. I wanted to start early and make sure everything's working. Maybe if the one person's that's on can just confirm that you've got audio and video in that little live chat thing, just put in a thumbs up or whatever. Oh, okay. We got more people coming on now. Hey, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in for the big Q&A today. I'd better go check and see if any more questions came in for this week's session and check it out. We had a couple come in on live chat on the website, which is kind of cool. That live chat on our website. Okay. Hey, thanks guys for letting me know. Last week I didn't have any audio for a couple of reasons. As we let a couple more people come on, I'll tell you what I was just telling the guys. When I set all of these events up, like a month and a half or 2 months ago, I didn't have this headset plugged in, and YouTube doesn't allow you to go add a microphone or a headset after you've already scheduled everything. Just kind of stupid. You'd think that Google of all people would allow you to change the mic that you have on there. Well, the overarching theme of today is going to be winter trout fishing. Naturally, we're talking on rivers because in the winter, at least this far north where we're at, it gets cold. Lakes are going to be iced up. So, talking winter trout fishing. As always, you can type in your questions in here, and then I get a lot of questions just sent in through Instagram, and then you guys can email me questions too as well to just joe@redsflyshop.com, or you can actually put them in the live chat of our website, and then the guys will usually feed me questions while we're doing this. So I got a handful of questions that I got that are written down in my horrific chicken scratch right here. And yeah, we'll just start hitting questions. And a couple of them are kind of repeats from the one of these that we did 2 weeks ago. And but I'll touch on them again. It's probably not the same group on 2 weeks in a row. And the first question is, what is a good forecast? A good forecast for winter fishing. Tyler 4x4 Mutter sent this one in, and it's a really good question because a lot of folks, when you're looking at a forecast, you're going to glance at a forecast and be like, maybe I can sneak out Thursday afternoon or whatever. And you'll look for the sunniest day with the warmest temperature, and it'd be like, oh my gosh, it's going to hit 50 degrees or whatever the temperature happens to be. That might be great, but if your overnight low is getting down like in the mid 20s or upper 20s on those sunny days, a lot of times it's not really going to hit that 50 degrees until say 3 o'clock. And you really need the front end of the day to be a little bit warmer. So I'm looking for cloudy days that stay just above freezing. So if I can find overnight lows in the low to mid 30s, I don't care if that daytime high is only going to be 40, 45 or whatever it is. I want those cloudy days so that keeps that morning time frame warmer, because my bite's going to start way earlier on those days. So gets down to 34 at night. I can get out there at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and maybe it's 35, 38 degrees or whatever it happens to be. And that bite's going to start way earlier. So I'm going to have a longer duration of a peak bite during those cloudier days. And then I'm also going to have a little bit better fishing throughout kind of the entire river system. So on the sunny days, say it's 40 degrees, whatever it happens to be, if I'm on a big, like shady bend or I'm in the shade, it's probably going to be very cold and still be kind of iced up. And on a cloudy day, it doesn't matter whether I'm in, true shade or sun or whatever it happens to be. Just that ambient air temperature is going to feel better, because those bright blue sunny sky days, even in the winter, you're probably still going to do better in those shady pieces of water, which are going to be pretty frigid. So I actually went out with my wife. That was at Sunday. Yeah, I guess time flies. That was Sunday. I actually took my wife winter fishing. It was pretty fun. We had a super, super good time. We didn't catch a whole lot. I think I caught 2 fish and she caught 3 fish. So you could say she outfished me, which made it more fun. We had a great time. So when it comes to winter fishing in general, don't worry too much about the fish you catch. The adventure that you have, getting cold, figuring out how to stay warm, all the enjoyment of making decisions on what flies you're going to fish and where you're going to fish. You still get all of that same enjoyment out of the trip, and we had a great time. Although I was pretty darn cold, but yeah, she froze. She was not dressed warm. She gave me a call out of the blue. And was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, it was Sunday. I was working the shop in the afternoon. She's like, "Hey, what do you say I come down there? We go fishing for a little bit." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go fishing anyways for a little bit. So yeah, if you want, like, come on down." And we went out for about 2 hours. Then we cut the trip short and came back to the bar and had drinks and appetizers. So that was a pretty fun time. Oh, and by the way, uh, not to make this too sales pitchy, but if you're thinking about coming out and staying at our lodge and fishing, right now at the lodge, if you book a guided fishing trip or a pheasant hunting trip, you get $100 off your stay at the lodge. And if you do it right and you can double dip on these promos, there's actually a romantic getaway promo going on now through the winter too, where on Thursday through Monday nights, you can take advantage of both promos if you call the lodge and ask for it, and you can actually get $100 voucher for the restaurant if you're staying Thursday through Monday nights. So anyway, I was just thinking about that because my wife and I had a good time. We didn't fish very long, but it was a it was a great time, and it would have been fun to actually stay the night that night as well. Okay, this one was hit on the last podcast. My favorite whitefish fly by Chatty Daddy 42. We get this question a surprising amount because there's a pretty good whitefish bite during the winter on most western streams, and whitefish are they're fun. They're wild indigenous fish, and they fill that void when you're not catching trout. And I like I like anything with a large bead that's flashy. I don't fish eggs very much. I like bugs. I feel like egg fishing. There is a match the hatch component to it because there's a whitefish spawn in the winter, and you can certainly catch trout on whitefish eggs. But I like anything flashy. Big Duracells would be great. Big Rosas. Those whitefish in the wintertime tend to tackle stuff with big beads. So I like stuff in the 14 range, something they're going to see. And the whitefish can be pretty aggressive, especially for us. Like that late December time frame is like can be insane for a whitefish bite. It's a pretty good time. I like it. And I need to do this. I did it years ago, but you can keep like up to I think 10 whitefish. Don't quote me on that on this river. And I need to just have a whitefish haul one day. I need to go out with some of the fellers from the shop here and just make an absolute whitefish haul and then smoke or cook those things. I did it once before, but I did a pretty crappy job of prepping the fish and it wasn't very good. So I need to give that another shot. Okay, I had a surprising number of questions about Water Masters, and I think we launched a Water Master sale today. They started their Black Friday sale early, and then there was kind of an onslaught of questions that came in, half through live chat, half through Instagram, and I haven't looked to see in the tray here on this pod what questions we have. And the question was, do you use fins on the Yakima River with your Water Master? And Trout Doc sent that question in. And I personally don't use them. I when I fish out of my Water Master, I want my feet on the ground. I really enjoy being stationary in the river and standing in the river. I think the connection you get with trout when it's just you're locked in place and I hook a fish, whether it's on tight line rig, trout spey, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's like super clean when I'm locked in. When I'm floating along in fins, my boat's moving downstream at a pretty good clip, and I hook that fish up. There's a little distraction with just the boat moving and me kicking my fins and all that kind of stuff. So I've used them like once throwing hoppers against the shore, and in our high water months when the fish are by the bank, it is very tough to weight them. And one of our instructors and part-time guides here, Mike Milligan, he's a retired teacher here in Ellensburg, and he's been fishing out of Watermaster here for 15 plus years. He is very successful with his fins during the summer. He just gets in the water, uses his fins, keeps the boat right, and he'll get really close to the shoreline and throw hoppers almost straight downstream, or stone flies straight downstream. And he gets very good drifts, and he is a highly effective and a very dangerous angler. I just personally haven't done that as much, but Mike will go out for kind of little evening jaunts. Then his wife Kathy will go pick him up down at the takeout, so he doesn't have to mess with running his own shuttle or paying for a shuttle or anything like that. So fins can be very effective, but I don't use them in low water. I like having my feet on the ground, personally. Okay, I had two questions on layering systems, and our screen shares on this have been really inconsistent. So I'm going to drop a link to answer this to a YouTube video. It'll give you a much more in depth, um, a much more in depth look at a layering system. So I'm going to plug that into the chat right there. And so if you're curious kind of what my layering system is, it's titled Early Spring, but that's still very cold. But I try to minimize the number of layers I'm wearing. I'm going to go with like a base layer, like an Under Armour or a set of tights. Like we sell these Grundens layering systems, and Grundens make great layering systems. They make them for commercial fishermen, great for moisture management, odor reduction, comfort, warmth, all that. So if I were buying something, fishing specific, it'd be like a Grundens heavyweight layering system, a pair of Squala wool Merino 350 pants, my waders, definitely the Sims thick over the calf socks. Over the calf socks are really important. Like you want your whole lower leg covered in that additional, because that's where, if you're wading, you're spending time is in that lower leg. Get the over the calf socks. And then I'm going to wear some type of real snug fitting or tight fitting base layer, a merino wool mid layer, my insulated jacket, and my shell. My shell is going to be good too. And then I might throw an insulated vest in with my insulated jacket on a really cold day. Big stocking cap beanie is going to be my layering system. But you can check that video out, and there's some other insights. As far as staying warm goes, like I posted an Instagram video of that day of fishing with my wife the other day, and she was doing jumping jacks and squats on the side of the river to stay warm, and it was kind of funny, like in the moment, but just moving around is a really good like idea. So if you're wade fishing in a spot and you're starting to get cold, you can do a couple of things. One, grab a snack out of your pocket. Just eating something and that additional metabolism that you get from that is a good way to stay warm. And then just walk up on the bank, walk around for a little bit, do a couple of squats, do a couple of jumping jacks, but literally just walking like to the next spot will usually warm you up and get your blood moving a little bit. And I think that's a simple underutilized tip. The other major tip, and if there's any people who listen to the Hunt Backcountry podcast, it's a backcountry hunting podcast, and they talk a lot about how to stay warm with a minimal layering system. They got a bunch of podcasts that talk about this. They bring it up constantly, but it's very true in that hunting environment where you might move, and then you're very stationary for a long period of time, and it's moisture management and sweat against your skin. So if you're going to hike down to a spot on the river, or don't like layer up and then drive to your fishing spot and then hike where you're going to create a layer of moisture against your skin. That's a no-no. Like, make sure you keep a minimal amount of layers on until you're like actually ready to go, so that you don't create this layer of sweat or moisture against your skin. And then all of a sudden you're participating in a fairly sedentary activity, which is fly fishing in the river. You're going to get cold. I've been so cold so many times, even when I have a lot of layers on, that I try to figure out how to minimize my layers so that I can maximize breathability and keep moisture off of my skin. So I think that's a really important tip. And they've reiterated that much more articulately on that other podcast. And so go follow those guys. And if you don't, and you're interested in Backcountry Hunting Endeavors. I think that's the best podcast out there for practical information. Try to model after those guys because they're so good at that. So the layering was asked a couple of different times, and so I think we covered that, and you can follow that other link. This was asked twice again, and that is how to keep ice out of your guides while fishing. And they have a couple of different tips on that. You can use like a Pam cooking spray if you're like if who has that in their tackle bag? Like, really? Like, I mean, if you're going to be fishing a ton in the winter, you might throw like a thing of cooking spray in your car or your tackle bag. But most of us during the winter, we're going to be fairly spontaneous. Hey, it looks like it's a nice afternoon. I would love to get out. I just need some fresh air. Work's been sucking. I've got a little free time. I'm going to go. Am I going to go buy a thing of Pam cooking spray? Probably not. So you can do a couple different things. One, fly floating in the last couple of guides. It's just a silicone based gel. You can use fly floating on your last couple of guides because the smallest ones are the ones that are going to freeze up, and that's where it has the most contact with the water. You can dip the tip of your rod in the water to free up that ice. That's a very short-sighted maneuver. That's like an emergency situation. Like, hey, I need to get this next cast or this next drift. I can dip the tip of my rod in the water and shake it around a little bit. That's going to make things far worse, and it will ice up to cast later if you're really fishing in very cold conditions. So I try to avoid that. But floating in the guides, and then the last one is try to minimize how much wet line is going in and out of your rod. That's not always something you can do, but if, like, say you're indicator fishing, which would be like probably our number one winter strategy, do you really need to feed 50 feet of line out? Are you really getting that many bites by feeding that much line out? Probably not. So minimizing the amount of wet line you bring back through your eyelets, if you can, is a really good way to do it. Tight line your own nymphing is a good example. Like, we'll fish what I call point blank range a lot, where I'm not really shooting a lot of line. I'm just kind of minimizing the amount of line that I'm bringing through. And so I'm fishing a very, almost Tenkara style. I'm fishing a very consistent length of line with very minimal line feeding. And I don't freeze up nearly as bad when I'm not bringing wet line back into the rod. So that would be another tip on minimizing ice. In winter fishing, it is one of the most wonderful experiences. Like, the crowds have gone home, you've got the river to yourself, it's quiet, there's usually massive amounts of wildlife out there, and you can catch some extremely nice fish in the winter, especially rainbows, because they are an early spring spawner, and the mature, more bigger rainbows are just flat out going to want to eat during the winter, so that they're in great shape to be able to procreate in that spring spawn. So you can catch some very large fish. I love winter fishing, and I don't dwell too much on the number of fish that I'm going to catch in the winter. I'm definitely it's a much more there's much greater intrinsic value, in my opinion, to just getting out in the winter, layering up, and going having adventure, and then taking some enormous satisfaction in just the few fish that I might catch during the winter. So definitely the quantity of fish is probably going to go down. The quality of fish may go up, but I think, like I said, the qualitative part of the experience is going to be greater during the winter, in my opinion. And you're embarking on an adventure that few others are willing to go do. So if you truly love fly fishing, I think that winter fishing is absolutely something that you need to get out there and go do. Uh, the next question, I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna start. We got good questions here, and you guys, I know for certain, are actually on here. Uh, uh, Best trout fishing, New Zealand versus Patagonia. You want to plan a trip to one or the other? Never been to New Zealand. That plane ticket's a lot more expensive, a lot further to go. I'd like to go do it someday. It sounds amazing, wonderful, but I'm sticking with Patagonia for now. Plane tickets to Patagonia, I can get them for about $2,000. It's not cheap, but it's amazing fishing, and man, culturally, I just love, love, love that experience in Patagonia. Uh, Tips for trying to keep your hands warm. That's great because I got that on my other list here. So keeping your hands warm, one, keep your body warm, keep your hands dry. There's lots of different opinions on keeping your hands warm. I could just tell you what I do. I'm going to wear some type of fold over mitt that I can tuck back. I've got a wool set that I bought at the local ranch and home. That one works pretty well. but wool has its disadvantages. And I still need to cut the thumbs off of the wool ones that I have so that I can actually tie and do things. But like a good fold over mitt, like from Sims, where you can actually fold it back, and I've got fingerless gloves when I need to tie stuff, and then I can just fold the mitt, and then the little thumb thing actually folds over so that I can cover my thumbs. My wool ones, I don't have that option. Uh, but the Sims ones are super great. So I'm a fold over mitt guy. Some guys will wear latex gloves. I don't like doing that. I just think it's gross. It's disposable. I don't like the micro trash that comes with latex gloves. And I can't really tie light tip it with latex gloves on anyways. If I were spey fishing for steelhead, that might be a great option where I'm not tying up and re-rigging very much. Great. I know that latex just to keep moisture off your hands is beneficial, but I don't do that. Fold over mitts and then keeping my hands inside my jacket and then moving around a little bit. And absolutely trying to keep your hands dry. Keeping a net with you. The other day when I was out, I forgot my freaking net in my car, and my car just gotten shuttled, and so I couldn't go back and get my net, and I got my hands wet right off the bat because my wife caught a fish on like the first cast. My hands got super wet, and I had to like really take some time to get them dried out. But keeping your hands very, very dry and then being diligent about not getting your sleeves wet if you do need to reach down to release fish or unsnag some line or something like that. I think that's very, very important. But uh, yeah, I think that just keeping your hands dry. Uh, I don't, again, I don't mess with hand warmers. People think those things are God's gift to fishermen. I don't like the micro trash. Half the time I shake the stupid little hand warmers up, they don't work anyway. So I don't mess with the hand warmers. I don't mess with the latex gloves. I keep it pretty simple. I've got a really good set of fishing mitts. Usually I managed to bring two lefts. Now I've got a ton of fishing gloves, and out of all the ones I have, I get this stuff usually from the manufacturers. I won't kid you. A lot of the stuff I have, I don't expect everybody to go out and buy everything that I review or endorse. That's an absolutely stupid concept. But I do constantly get gear so I can test it and figure it out and give advice. But out of all the gloves I've used neoprene, I've used this, I've used that, I've used straight fingerless. Is just the fold over mitts, like that a fishing specific one, so that the little thummy guy will fold back when I'm not using it, and then I can fold it over when I can't feel my thumb and it's numb. So yeah, that's a real issue. Like, I mean, you got to be able to take a break and just get your hands warm and put them in your pocket, from time to time. Additionally to that, fish setups that don't require a lot of maintenance. When I was out, I'm glad I went out on Sunday because it was a really like good audit for like what I was planning this podcast. I was thinking about these things. But like the rigs I was fishing on Sunday, I kept them super simple. Like we fish one nymph a lot in the wintertime, just one nymph, because I want to keep fluid and I will fish two if I'm not catching fish, but plan A always is just one nymph. It tangles less, it snags less. My wife tangled a couple times. I'm intended to make a full YouTube video out of it, but the fishing was pretty lean, so it wasn't worth editing a full blown YouTube for it. But she tangled a couple times. There's a funny clip in there of me untangling her rig, but you can see because there was just one nymph, I was able to untangle it really, really quickly. So if you want to kind of a laugh, go look at that Instagram video. But the single nymph concept, if I do have cold hands, I want to be able to untangle things really quickly and have a low maintenance rig. Streamer fishing's like that, and then indicator rigs, single nymphs are like that, and then tight line fishing. If you're tight line nymphing, single rigs are always going to be plan A for me. Casey Velasquez, streamer fishing with Euro rig, effective, and how do you protect the light tip? Great question. So I protect the light tip by running small streamers, very sparse. Run lighter tippet. So I run at most, I might run a 3X if I'm casting and stripping it a lot on my Euro rig, but generally I'm going to do a hybrid of tap, 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 lead it through, rock piles and really like specific little buckets. We're talking just pure mono rig, 10.5 foot 3 weight, check nymphing, little sculpin and crayfish through spots. And then I'm going to let it swing up at the end. If I see a little back eddy or a pocket or a tree, then I can cast it over there and strip it through those spots. But the heaviest I would ever dream of running would be 3X. I'm usually going to run 5. 5 just slices through current, and I can do stuff with 5 that I can't do with 4, or definitely not 3. So the light tip, it protects the tip of the rod because those are delicate. And then setting the hook and stuff like that. I mean, those rods are made to protect light tippet, so I can jam them hard on 5X. And the real specific family of jig streamers I'm fishing, if you go to, we have a collection of Euro jig streamers on our website. It's a whole collection, and those are light wire streamer hooks. You can't take like a JJ bugger or even a Sculpzilla or a lot of like traditional buggers and big streamers and very effectively fish them on these light technical rods, because the hook, the gauge of the steel on those hooks is so big, you're not going to be able to jam it home, when you get some meat with that light rod and that light line. So you want streamers that are specifically tied for those light technical rods. So the Croston's Euro Jigs family, among others, the Gold Jigger from Rio is a good one, although the bead is a little light for what I want to do. Rio's Soccer Mom is a kick-ass winter streamer because it's got that light wire hook, so you get a soft take, and you need to jam that thing home. That light wire hook on the Soccer Mom is superb. So light tippet, light hooks, that ought to do it for you. Yeah. So the Magnum 637. Do you have any suggestions how to fish the no-seam type flies effectively in the winter? It's great question. Squint, dude. Like the George Costanza squint. That's the way to see those things. No, you know, that's a great question. The RS2 is like the perfect example of like the fly that you know is an unbelievably effective, but is impossible to see. Just double dry rigs, even using like an elk hair caddis. It's actually that's a money tip, man. Like a peacock or dark elk hair caddis. And you can use parachutes and junk like that, but the elk hair, because there's no tail on it, I tend to like trailers on the elk hair caddis. And the elk hair caddis gets bit a lot of the time because it looks like a midge cluster or a cluster of blue-wing olives. Whereas, like, say, a larger parachute Adams just looks like a mayfly that's out of place. But the hackle and the chaos that is emulated by that elk hair caddis or a large Griffith's gnat. An elk hair caddis is like a Griffith's gnat, which is intended to be a midge cluster with a wing on it. The Griffith's gnat is the midge cluster. An elk hair caddis is really basically a Griffith's gnat with a wing. And you will be shocked how many trout on midge hatches or itty bitty blue wing hatches will actually eat an elk hair caddis because of that hackle belly. Just looks like a couple of bugs struggling. Maybe they're mating. Maybe they're using one another to try to get a purchase on the surface tension and then fly away. So the elk hair caddis actually works extremely well for those midgy situations or those little like tricos and little itty bitty blue wings and that kind of stuff. So I would say go double dry on that. People mention like use little indicators and crap like that. I don't use anything that's going to hit the water with any type of force. Even pulse pinch on indicators are pretty soft. I can control mend and skate. So when you think about like even a little tiny indicator, the amount of resistance that that indicator has when you mend it is going to make a wave. Whereas a fly that's perched way up on the surface tension is going to make the most minimal disturbance, like when I go to mend it. So I can shoot that in. Maybe I got an RS2, following a little, number 18 or 16 elk hair caddis. The elk hair is pretty easy to see because it perches on tension, and I can actually cast that out, and I can actually go and I can actually mend it and like really bring it up on surface tension during my mend, by just putting it out there and bringing it up. So I'm definitely going to go with a little tiny dry fly, especially one that likes to skate like an elk hair. And then running floatant on your leader will really help keep those no-seum, type emergers up on top too, because then most flies sink not because the fly sinks. Most flies sink because the leader sinks, and then you go to make an adjustment or it hits a little subcurrent, and then that leader actually puts pressure on the fly, and the fly follows the leader, which the leader is, the leader sinks, and so that little bow is going to sink your fly. So running floatant down to about 6 inches away from the fly will really help your buoyancy on the no-seam emergers as well. Uh, Good tip from Scott Simpson: Patagonia fleece booties over your socks is a game changer. Need a little extra room in your boots, but the insulated sock, battery heated socks are an option too. Guy was in here the other day, setting his Bluetooth for his battery heated socks. Sounded nice. I'm probably going to forget to charge them. Then I'm probably just going to have some crappy socks that I forgot to charge. That's like me to do that. So I haven't experimented with battery heated socks, but I think if you plan ahead and you're organized, you're probably going to do it. I'm not that organized. Uh, Tyler Smith, what's your favorite fish pond net for wading? I like the Fish Pond Canyon, and uh, let me put a. I'm just going to put a link in the video description because it's pretty compact. I can put it in a sling. I can do it even in a hip pack and that kind of stuff. So just click that, Tyler, if you can. And that's the one I like. I just like the build of it. It's a good size. I can jam an 18-inch fish in there. 20s are a little bit rougher customers trying to get in there. But for my 10 to 16-inch fish, if I'm on dink patrol, no problem. I like the Canyon net. It's handy. Yeah, they're super good nets. I really like the fish pond stuff. Um, Scott asked, "How was the Upper Yakima Cooper River during the winter months? Which flies are here during the winter?" So I think the Cooper is closed. I think that closed October 31st, but you can double check that. So be cautious there. And the winter hits that region very hard. You might have been referring to the Cle Elum River, which is what the Cooper runs into. And yeah, the Cle Elum below the lake can fish in the shoulder season. Just make sure and check the regulations. Over the years, there's been a couple of changes there from time to time, and I haven't fished it, winter fished it recently. I have in the past because it has been open, but check the regs on some of those because with the reintroduction of sockeye in that system, uh, there's been talk or actually has been regulation changes in the off months. So check it. But in the Upper Yakima, focus on holes. Make sure you're fishing in very distinct big tanks, slow holes. There's two tips I have for you fishing those holes in that Cle Elum area. Applies to all western rivers, not just that area, but in the canyon, the river looks a little different because we're running over basalt bedrock here. So holes lay out a little different. The Upper Yakima on a lot of rivers, you're looking at a fluvial bottom, which is soft gravel, and the river behaves a little different. So most of the holes are going to have like river comes down, riffle, riffle, riffle. It's moving downhill and fast. You're not going to find anything in there, usually not much in there. And then that river will generally take a bend at most holes. So as that river bends, the head of those runs on the inside, on the very inside, right where it drops, that transition water that's walking speed, the head of the run inside is going to be probably your number one spot. The water comes in and then it goes kind of does a little swirly poo at the top inside where there's some dead slack water. That's probably not going to be holding much. That water kind of moves backwards and does some weird stuff. Those trout don't like that. They don't like getting pushed around. They like being in one spot where they can see what's coming to them. They can sense predators. They're not floating around in limbo, ready for the merganser or the osprey to get them. And then after that little swirly pit, there's going to be a secondary seam in all of those pools. And that's where the water is kind of like, oh, it's trying to figure out which direction it's going to go. And then a little further downstream, all of it decides at a particular spot to start moving downstream, the appropriate area again. And it's on that secondary seam, the head of that secondary seam, which might be halfway down a pool sometimes. That secondary seam is a very, very important piece of water for you to look at. And generally speaking, the inside ledges of those long, deep pools are going to be the best. My personal theory is there is spring water, rivers run under the ground as well as above the ground. And I believe there is, the term would be interflow, and there is springs essentially. That interflow is going to produce springs, which are going to be probably a more friendly water temperature than the ambient air temperature, which could be very cold. Oftentimes the air temperature is colder than the water temperature. And that surface water, that even that riffle is going to be much colder. And those fish will tuck into those inside ledges because I believe there's spring water being fed on those inside ledges there. So it applies to all rivers, especially that Upper Yakima and every it applies in the canyon as well, the canyon section, but like in our local area from like Bighorn up to Cleellum, that would be a much more classic layout of riffle, 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 hard inside bend, slack water on the inside, a little swirly poo there, and then secondary seam down is going to be my preferred winter water. Another question: have small egg patterns performed for you on the Yakima? Yes, they have. For, I don't know why. I don't personally prefer fishing egg patterns. I'm not against it. I like fishing bugs. I would rather fish a worm before an egg because a worm is an insect and it's kind of match the hatch. Egg fishing, I feel a little bit like I might as well be throwing a Dick Knight. Personal opinion. But yes, small yellow eggs in the winter can emulate a whitefish spawn and be very productive in the wintertime. And then when we have a Chinook spawn in or a sockeye spawn in the fall time frame, little 6 millimeter pink eggs, behind the sockeye, obviously I'm going to assume everyone has ethics and they're not just trotting around all over these spawning salmon. So before anybody jumps to it and says, "What are you doing promoting walking around on the spawning salmon?" Let's just assume everybody has some kind of brain on their head or in their head. Not going to walk around on spawning salmon, but if you're witnessing some spawning salmon in the river, naturally an egg pattern might be a viable pattern that you would use below the Chinook or sockeye should you encounter those in the system, and that would be a fall spawner. So, yep, lots of success on egg patterns. Not one of my go-tos. They're generally speaking, the egg bite is like it's very short. It's like right when the salmon are on the spawn, the fish get wise to it immediately. They get hooked once or twice and it's done. So I would rather generally I'm going to invest my time and energy in finding and utilizing bug patterns that I can learn more about that are going to produce for me possibly year round or at least a greater portion of the season. So my preference is to fish bugs, but yeah, little yellow guys in the wintertime and then little pinkies in the fall if you see that there's salmon in the river. Trout spey in the winter. Can you get deep enough to move fish? Hackle, streamers, both. Yeah. Thanks, Greg. Yeah. Question from Greg there. Yeah, you can move fish on trout spey in the winter. Absolutely. Very productive. When I say very productive, there might be days where it's damn near impossible to catch fish on trout spey gear. There might be days where you can move 6 really, really good fish to your fly, maybe a dozen on a super day, including dinkers. So yeah, it's a very viable option. So in generally speaking, on the trout spey, there isn't really a particular like water type because like even in the swift water with trout spey, the fish are still holding in that slow water underneath that fast surface layer. So even if I'm only getting down 2 or 3 feet, I might be within 24 inches of the trout. That's nothing for a trout to move 2 feet and grab a bug. But you definitely want to slow those swings down so they're not just ripping across the current. So more of a steelheader's cast, mend, hover, 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 hover across the way. And then I'm using fast sink tips. Most things I'm using the winter are going to sink at a minimum of 4 inches per second. And then I'm partial to I'm partial if I had to choose to very light or unweighted flies. Just over the years, that's just been better for me. But I'm definitely when I make fly changes, if I'm going to fish a run twice, which I don't know why people just don't fish water twice. They just don't like to do it. They think they just fish it once, and they have such I'm going to include myself in this. We have such giant egos that there's no fish there. I fished that perfectly. Well, guess what? You probably didn't. You probably fished it you probably wallowed in mediocrity your entire way through. When I actually go back and fish something twice, and I fished through it, and I didn't on Sunday. We were freezing cold, but I should have fished more water twice with my spey rod, and I should have fished it unweighted the first time, walked back up, learned, the nuance of the run, put a weighted fly on, and fished it through the second time. And then I would at least had some data on whether I'm catching fish more on the unweighted versus the weighted. And then I've got a comparative analysis, right? So if the second time through I don't hook anything and I had 3 grabs the first time through, then I know what fly is working better. So I think it's really important to fish water twice. And then be willing to step, especially with your trout spey rigs. Like be willing to move the ball down the field so that you can go back up to the top and hit it again and fish the second time through. So I think that's very, very important to do. So yeah, absolutely. Trout spey is very good in the wintertime. Uh, how important are dry flies for winter fishing? This is uh, Bleta or Bleta. How important are dry flies for winter fishing? Will a fish not eat a nymph but eat a dry fly in the winter? Absolutely. I've seen that. It's not common. It's very important to have some dry flies. Years ago, like I'm gonna go like reverse time. I'm gonna go way back in time when I first started fishing the winter in the Yakima River was about like 2001 or two, and I'm just gonna use this river as it's we share so many similarities with most other western streams or even eastern streams for that matter. Trout are trout, bugs are bugs. And we used to have unbelievable midge hatches. And I don't know what happened, but our midge hatches seem to have moved into like February and March now. And they used to be like right smack dab in the middle of December, like New Year's Eve. I can remember having nice feeding fish on midge in the wintertime. And I don't know what changed. Is some people contend that the agricultural practices have changed and they're using different chemicals and things. I don't have a hypothesis other than just insects may be cyclical because some of our hatches are better now, whereas some of them waned, and I think ecologically our river's in good condition. So you're not going to hear me go on some enviro rant here regarding the lack of a midge hatch over the last couple of decades. But it was good. Like we had good feeding fish on midges and a lot of midges. And yeah, there were times when not necessarily just fishing dries to those fish was good, but what happened was when those midges got going, and this is important to know that if you get one of those warm cloudy days that where the air temperature is warmer than the water temperature, at some point during the day the shallow water is going to be the preferred water. And I've seen fish in mid-December up in water this deep eating midges, and it's because those surface currents are just warmer. They just move up into those edges and they're feeding up in that shallow water where it would be really impossible to throw an indicator to nymph. And now I need to think about, well, I can throw a Griffith's gnat, I could throw a dark colored caddis to imitate a cluster of midge, which is a group of mating or hatching midges. It could be either one. It's usually mating where there's a group of them and they're just kind of floating and having this midge orgy floating downstream. So maybe the fish are sipping those. If I'm seeing the head of the fish, then I know that they're probably eating the adult midge in the midge clusters. That's usually later in the hatch. If I'm just seeing a back and a tail, they're usually eating that midge. And I'm going to make a little diagram here. If I can find a blank piece of scratch paper. And I'll show you when they're eating back and tail. A midge is a mosquito larva is kind of the classic midge. Um, and I think most people know what a mosquito larva looks like. So the midge is going to be here, and its head will be the first thing to get to the surface. Then its segmented body will be here hanging down, and those fish can just come up. And if I'm the fish, I'm just going to go, and I'm just going to suck it in. And then as I go down, you're going to see the finish of the back and tail going down. And midge, it's very common to just see the backs and tails because those midge, the head will just sit here and they can just suck them in and go back down. And you're going to see a swirl or boil. They'll do it with other nymphs and things too. And that's when I'll run a little tiny black zebra midge right under the surface, right behind the tiniest yarn indicator that I possibly can. You could run it behind a little tiny dry fly like that little elk hair caddis, and then hang that midge even as close as 6 inches underneath the surface. And so we might just put that in the dry fly category too, because the fish are positioned in these shallow edges where I just can't, I would spook them trying to throw like an indicator and a nymph in there. And that's largely because that shallow water has gotten much warmer than the body of the river. So those fish do like to move out to the edges. And that's usually, say, from 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on till dusk on a nice, warm, cloudy winter day is when I see that most common. Uh, yeah. And so, oh, yeah, thanks for your Euro nymph and reel purchasing guide. Well, thank you very much. And hopefully we got a purchase out of you. And that's part of the motivation there. One, we want to make you good fly fishermen, get you informed, but we also want to sell you some stuff while we're at it too. So you can go and have good adventures. Any tips for stillwater fishing, big lakes from the banks, big streamers, small streamers? Yeah, so it's a good question. And I've got some other questions here too that I'm going to hit. And there's a couple about lake fishing. And when I can lake fish from the shore, I really do enjoy lake fishing from the shore. And I mentioned this earlier in the pod that I enjoy having my feet on the ground when I hook fish. I just think it's great satisfaction. I get to feel everything that fish is doing. I don't have the static of the boat floating around. I mean, I want to feel that fish's energy and power and be connected to that wild critter just right through my line. I love fishing and having my feet connected to the ground. I think it's so much value to that as far as overall experience. So on a lake, yes, I like fishing from the shore on lakes when I can. I'll actually park. I used to float tube fish a lot. Um, we have amazing lake fisheries here in Eastern Washington. We don't do them and talk about them enough because we don't. They're not practical for us to outfit on. We'll certainly fish them occasionally and help out. But there was a book called Fishing Desert and Arid Lakes by Steve Probasco, written in the mid 90s, that was a masterpiece on fishing a lot of the lakes, the desert and arid lakes of Eastern Washington. And I might be blowing some of your minds that Washington has deserts. Yeah, we're like one of the driest places on earth at our latitude is just like 20 miles from here. I mean, it's amazing. We do not get a lot of precipitation right here where we're at, but if you go just a tiny bit to the west, it's temperate rainforest up on the Cascades. But we're in the desert here, and the desert and arid lakes grow massive insect life, grow wonderful trout, very productive trout fisheries. We have great lake fishing, and I would often in my float tube, I would float tube around. About the first time I had to pee in that flow tube, I just paddle over to the shore with my fins, get out of that thing, take my fins off. What a pain in the neck. I don't miss my flow tube a lot. I like my Watermaster. But then I would ditch it and I would fish on the shore where I could because I have a lot more control on the shore. If my boat is floating around at all, you have to remember when we're fishing a bug, and a big bug might be this big, a little bug might be this big. Those bugs don't move around like crazy, like they're not that fast. I mean, they're pretty slow and methodical, and we want to provide like or produce a presentation that is bug like, little insects, small amounts of movement. And when I'm on the ground and my feet are connected, I can strip and I know exactly how much my strip is moving the fly. If I'm floating around helter skelter and getting pushed around in the wind in a boat, I don't have nearly the control. You could argue that I can cover more water, but generally in lakes, like fish are on some type of circulation plan. They're going to move, they're going to circulate. And if I can interject my presentation into that circulation, I might have a new fish coming by every little bit. And if I'm just consistent with where I'm at, then hopefully the fish are coming to me in a stillwater environment. So I like being on the ground first and foremost, and getting a good shooting headline system, something that you can shoot and fish. I like fishing an intermediate sinking line, like a Rio outbound, would be a great place to start. Uh, I don't want to go too much of a deep dive into this, but like something where I can throw one false cast or even roll it out to set my angle and then just pick it up and go woo and then send it. And I've got, a very quick 60-foot cast and I can get coverage. So I think good shooting head and a longer rod. So 10-foot rod, 10-foot 5 weight would be great. Some type of shooting head, intermediate line, and you can do a whole bunch of different stuff from pulling damsel nymphs, leeches, streamers, even swimming nymphs like soft hackles, dragonfly nymphs. I mean, dragonfly nymphs are unbelievably fun. And then I'm going to give you like a mega hot tip here for lake fishing. Mega hot tip. I learned this in South America. And olive Pat's rubber leg stonefly nymph is like one of the best dragonfly nymphs that you could possibly tie on. But the guides in South America showed me that, and it's unbelievably effective the way that bug moves and strips and kicks. It looks so much like a dragonfly nymph, and they'll actually eat it while it's sinking. It's very effective. I mean, I tried fishing traditional. Flies have fall into a couple of different categories. They can be impressionistic or they can be realistic, and that impressionistic element of that Pat Stone in the lake is unbelievably effective. It looks the same from every angle. So all of Pat Stone's always going to be in my lake box. Makes killer dragonfly nymph. So they'll eat it while it pauses and all that. But 10-foot rod, intermediate shooting head, and fishing from the shore is underrated, and it's very, very good for some of the aforementioned reasons here. Uh, okay, let me hammer on a few more questions here from the list, you guys. Great questions so far. Type a few more in there, and I'll get back to them after these ones. Um, what glasses for low light in the winter? This is a very good question. I've been stuck wearing these things the last few dark days out, and these are the Costa Green Mirror, and they are way too dark for winter fishing. I went over to visit my dad. He got a hip replacement, and I forgot my Bahios with the really bright, that violet mirror lens at his house. And I need to tell my old man to ship those things. So, Dad, if you're watching, just mail those freaking things to me. It's been a month and I've been without them because these are way too dark. Like, I even have a tough time even tying tippet with these darn things on, even in a fairly bright day. I mean, just that flat light that we're getting right now in the wintertime and the low light have been horrible. So, yes, good bright glasses are important for winter fishing. Speaking of glasses, okay, what are these? 250 bucks? I don't know, 200 bucks, whatever they are. I have used these, the dollars per minute that I've gotten out of my glasses. This is the best investment I've ever made in fly fishing gear. I mean, like, I've had these for a couple years. These things have held up amazing. But I think people cheap out on their glasses, and then I think you should actually have, because you're going to use them 100% of the time. I use glasses. I get way more mileage out of these than I do my fly rods or anything else. So yeah, I think glasses are probably one of the most under leveraged pieces of gear because you can wear them all year long doing other stuff too. So I don't cheap out on your glasses. I wear the Bahio Violet mirror lenses in any low light situation, and I love them. I forgot how much I like the things until I was stuck using my darker ones. And even during the course of my regular guide season, I wore the light lenses way more because the fish are harder to see. Things are generally, just in general, harder to see in like shadows and when it's dark than when it's bright. When it's bright, pretty much any lens will show me everything. Uh, the BHOs on bright days, if you glance towards the sun or look into the sun, they're awful. I mean, your retina will blow up. But in general, I wore my light colored lenses, my low light lenses, far more than I wore my darker lenses. So if you don't have a pair of low light lenses, uh, uh, that I would definitely look at that. I think that'll give you a profound advantage. And that question was a good one, and that was Fly for Sky Montana or MT. I'm assuming that's Montana. um, Answered this one already. It was, do you fish out of the go on your Watermaster? That was the third time that question got asked. It was a good question. How do you keep your hands warm in your favorite glove? Already nailed that one. And if you weren't listening before, I've tried every different glove that there is. I don't like disposable latex gloves. I don't like the micro trash. Uh, I just don't. I don't like that. I don't use the hand warmers. I don't like the micro trash. I have a good fold over mitt where I have a fingerless glove option, and then I can fold the mitt over when I'm really getting numb hands. Can you fit? Here's another question. Treg Owings, can you fit a lab on your Watermaster Labrador Retrievers? What he's referring to. You could. Depends on the size. I don't know if it was cold and wet, if I'd want that dog jumping up on my Watermaster and shaking off. But yeah, the capacity, depending on how big you are, Treg, certainly it has the weight capacity. If you're going to take your dog on your Watermaster, make sure that you're wearing like a vest or like a chest pack because they're just going to be bumping into your backpack and stuff all the time. I know this because I've had my kids on my Watermaster before, and they will bump into your backpack, and it's kind of a pain in the neck. A dog that will not fit on the Watermaster, if you've ever seen Ashton, Ashton is one of our staff members and one of our guides here. And she has a lab named Bamba that would sink most Watermasters. The dog is absolutely enormous. It is one of the coolest labs I have ever seen. Not because it's fat, because that thing is truly the definition of big boned. So yeah, the lab will fit, but uh, that might be like you float down and you let the lab run around on the bank and you wade fish, and then you get the lab back on. But I like a long extended period of time with a lab on there. Wouldn't get it. Wouldn't be good. Uh, Okay, so we got another question, and I know this person must watch the YouTube videos or have heard me do a seminar somewhere at some point because they've used my quote. And they said, if you had to compete for $1 million fishing today, what's your rig? And that was B underscore Lee. That must be Bruce Lee. If you had to compete for $1 million, what's today? What's your rig? Um, my rig's probably gonna be one of my light technical rods, probably my Thomas and Thomas. Let's assume I'm not just competing for just a single great big giant trout. Probably my 10 foot 9 inch 2 weight Thomas and Thomas rig, and I'm probably going to run. If I got to pick just one rig like this, I'm assuming this is like just one setup. Like I can't change flies, add an indicator, sink tip, or anything like that. Probably my TNT, and I'm probably going to run a jig streamer on that thing. And the jig streamer that I'm going to run, it's going to be that one of the Crostons. Um, Probably the year. No, I want the black one. Let's just say a black jig leech. Okay. Because I got to make this as kind of like universal as possible. A black jig leech, because I think leeches are largely underutilized. The black woolly bugger died somewhere about 15 years ago, and people want these a lot of fancy stuff and a lot of flies with more pizzazz and flash and much crap on them. A really well tied, and I'm not just saying some generic black woolly bugger from discountflies.com. Nothing against discountflies.com, but you don't know what you're getting. Like I'm talking about a really well tied, well balanced, good materials with high level of sheen, with a good hook and a good beat. A black jig leech is can be a stonefly nymph, it can be a leech, it can be a minnow, it can be a whole bunch of different things. It could be a big crane fly larva. It's every trout's greatest fantasy. It's impressionistic. The trout can see that it's black and it's shiny. It is food. It is not just a twig, a stick, a leaf. When flies get a lot of different colors on them and they've just got a whole bunch of baloney on them, they can look like a lot of different things. Trout don't see color the same way we do, and so they might not appreciate that nice hash of red in the fly that looks like it's gill plate. They see shapes, they see behavior, and they see the idea of whatever it is that they're imagining and hoping it is to be. And so, a straight black leech is still very effective. But it's got to have the right weight. It's got to be tied on a good hook. It's got to be clean. It's got to be proportioned wisely, and then it has to be able to have hold a consistent profile. Uh, and I'll share with you this particular leech. I'm going to go and grab a link, and yeah, this one right there, and I'm going to put that in the chat window, and you can click that. But that would be what I would run because I needed to do a little bit of everything. I can jig this thing along the bottom. I can turn it into a stonefly nymph. I can turn it into a helpless leech, a dark crayfish, whatever the trout wants it to be. I don't care. And then I can turn around and I can throw it into a back eddy and I can strip it and I can fish it along the bottom. I can let it swing up and I can let it do a whole bunch of different stuff. So I think if I were fishing today, it's debatable. A TJ hooker would be good too, but I don't like the hook on the TJ hooker as much as I like the hook on this one, just because this is a slick barbless, and I can hook and retain a greater number of the fish that bite on this particular hook. Uh, if you click that, you'll see that hook. But I would fish that, and if I was allowed to have a second fly, I would probably run the biggest tungsten jighead midge, tungsten zebra midge. And I'll put that one in there in the black and olive, and there is a 14. And the reason I would choose a 14, and I worked with some folks on the shop floor here this year that were fishing. I tried to work the shop floor more this fall. It was a really good time. It'd been a while since they allowed me to go back behind the counter because I usually mess things up when I'm in there. But I worked the floor on some of the weekends to help Bobby out down there. And I told people this, but the zebra midge is, yeah, it looks like, the size on the leech. If you click that, let me click back. It's, yeah, I see what you're asking here. I would run the number 12E with a 3.8 millimeter bead. I thought it only came in, they're very similar. It's hard to tell the differences between the two. The hooks are almost identical, but the bead size is different. But I would run the heavy bead just because I can do a little bit more with it. But the thing on the zebra midge, like you can run a zebra midge in a pretty big hook size, and it still looks like an itty bitty nymph. So even the 14, because the body is so skinny, it still looks like a little tiny nymph. And so I get the benefit of the larger hook size and the larger gape for just keeping fish pinned, but it still gives the impression of a very small fly. So number 14, zebra midge, I'll bang them up on that thing. And I will fish down to a 16 and an 18 if I think I'm leaving fish behind. But that bigger zebra midge really gives the impression of a tiny fly. And but I get the benefit of the big hook. So if I were fishing for $1 million, that's my rig. Um, I would run those two. But if I had to just choose one, I part of it for me too is I like fishing single flies. So I like fishing the leech style flies and stuff too. If I can catch and I'm beyond the stage of just having to catch a lot of trout, so I come at this with a little different filter. Uh, I don't mind catching less fish and doing it with really simple rigs, just so that I can enjoy moving around the river and trying to figure things out. I will fish two flies at times, but plan A, single fly rig for me. Just have fun out there. Uh, can a Watermaster fit in the trunk of my 83 Buick Skylark? Joking. That is a POS. That's kind of funny. 83 Buick Skylark. And what is the best pump combo? So the question is, will a Watermaster fit the trunk of a regular car? Yeah, if you deflate it and roll it up, no problem, man. It'll fit right in there. So yeah, that's the Watermaster style boat. And I'll for those that want to see what a water, if you're like, what the heck is a Watermaster? Rather than having you Google it, let me just plug it in. Let me just plug it in here, and I'll show you what it is. There you go. So that boat right there is frameless. If you click that link and follow it over, that boat is a frameless boat, and they're actually on sale 20% off right now. I got to go make a price adjustment. For some reason, that price isn't coming up quite right. But they're 20% off right now, and I think that's why we got like 4 or 5 questions on it. That's a frameless boat, so that means you can actually roll that thing up and fold it up and store it anywhere. I mean, you can carry it on your back. They're amazing little boats. But I think that the nugget in that question right there that I think is really good is, what is the best pump combination? If I were running my Watermaster in a vehicle, like say I was going to put it in my Jeep Suburban or whatever, or my 83 Buick Skylark, should I have one of those POSs? Uh, no offense to people with the Buick Skylark, that was in the question that it was a POS. If I were running in the trunk of a car, I would actually run an electronic pump, a 12-volt electronic pump of some sort, and then I could just set it and forget it, rig up my rod or whatever. But I wouldn't run a personal watercraft boat. It would be extreme for me to say I wouldn't run it without a K pump under any circumstance, but I strongly recommend getting a K pump, like a K pump 100. And a K pump is basically just, it's PVC and it's basically a syringe. So there's no flexible hoses or anything to break or get lost. V connection, there's no fittings you need. It's just K pump right into the valve like a giant syringe. And that's how we top those boats off to get them super tight. They're very durable and trustworthy. So if you're on a trip somewhere, they're indestructible. There's just not a way to break that pump and leave you hanging. Whereas the chintzy foot pumps that you get with the Watermasters or a lot of other boats, a lot of the hand pumps and stuff, you're going to have problems with those at some point. Just open your wallet, dump it out, get the K pump, and you'll thank me later. The K pumps, we run a lot of different types of pumps. The K pumps don't fail. And I think it's important, if you're going to have that boat and you're going to go on a venture, get the K pump. So electric pump to bring it up. There's tons of different types of electric pumps. Just get a general pump, and then figure out how you're going to get the fittings on there later. But like even the crap that you fill up the air mattress on the camping trip, you fill up the kids' inner tubes, whatever it is, any of those volume electronic 12-volt pumps will do it. Another Watermaster question. Can you patch Watermaster boats? How do you do it? There's lots of information on patching these things. So I'm not going to, that was Nathan underscore S, whoever that is, asked that question. We've patched them. The only times we patched them, if you're going to use them super hard, you're probably going to wind up with a pinhole leak at some point from just dragging it over gravel, dragging it up the ramp, whatever you're doing, pushing it over log jams. If you're using them hard, you're going to get a pinhole leak at some point. We've never had a leak that has impacted our adventure. Like, never once has it been like, oh man, we blew a hole in this thing. What do we do now? We got to patch it, or we can't proceed. We might just start to notice, like, hey, one of these pontoons is a little soft at the end of the day. Maybe at, partway through the day, I got to tighten up one of the pontoons with my K pump. Like, that would be a scenario for water masters that we have that are years old. And yes, we've patched them. It's pretty easy to do. You do it in a nice warm environment. There's videos on how to do that. Rich at Watermaster has got some videos on how to patch them. Easy to do. They come with patch kits. Never had to do it like in the field or anything like that. So it's really not an issue. So um, at some point you may need to patch it, but it's that should not even be a concern if, like, you're thinking about getting one. If you own one and you have to patch it, go find that resource. I'm not sure where the anchor came from. How Another question from O Danny Boy 99. How long will you continue to work a productive pool? Well, the fact that you said productive, man, like, pump that well till it's dry. Go through it again and again and again. And in the winter, those fish will pod up in particular spots within a pool. And so I will often work until I get a hookup or two, and then I will leave that spot alone. And I will usually work downstream or upstream, depending on what direction I'm going. And then once I locate where that pot of fish are, that's when I might change my depth of indicator. I might change my fly or change my strategy. But I've been known to actually take a stick if it's a real long pool and I'm having a hard time like marking where it is. Like, there's not like one boulder that I'm catching the trout behind. I'll actually put a stick in the ground. I do this with steelheading a lot too, like where I was standing when I got a grab from a steelhead, or I found a pot of winter trout. I will actually put a stick in the ground or make a mark on the bank with my foot, or just landmark the bank somehow. And then I'll go fish around, fish the head of the pool, fish the tail out. And then I'll come back to that very spot. And it's shocking how many fish might be holding in like one spot on that ledge. Earlier in the pod, I'd mentioned that there are sometimes like springs or seeps of controlled temperature water that come in certain spots. Fish in the dead of winter will actually pot up on that stuff. And so we can continue to pick on them. So pump that well till it's dry, man. I think it's more important to fish pools extremely well in the winter than to fish a lot of pools. That run and gun offense does not work very well in the wintertime. So you're going to need to change depths of your indicator, change flies, change rigs, change strategies. Change strategies. Sorry, it's not a boring question. I just got a case of the yawns. I felt that coming on for a while now. But change strategies and fish a pool twice or even three times through versus move to another one. Because each time you go through, if you're hooking fish, you're getting more and more data on what's going to be productive in that particular pool. So definitely quality of fishing over quantity of water during the cold season. Another question. Ash for Cash, Wyoming. Does tippet act different in cold conditions? Yeah, it's harder than hell to tie when your hands are cold. I'm not entirely convinced that's the tippet's fault. That might be my hands. But no, I've not found tippet to have a different rank strength or be harder to deal with or any way, shape, or form. So no, tippet's the same. As far as I can tell, fly lines definitely act different when it's cold. Okay. Question from Greg here. What strategy do you leverage to get your wife out to fish in a cold day? This assumes she doesn't have the same love of fly fishing. I could be dead wrong. Charm, enticing lunch. What's the secret? A dinner at Canyon River Grill, man. That's our restaurant in house here, which is spectacular. If you haven't been here before, that's how I do it. Man, it's a good question. You just got to keep it so fun and so light. I screwed up so many fishing trips with my wife over the years. We've been together 28 years, 27 years. And I screwed up so many trips by being way too fishing focused and not just having a little bit of fun and goofing off. And sometimes one fish is enough. Like, just worry about getting one fish. That's going to make you, if you have not yet caught that one fish, it's going to make you more patient on tangles and strategy and how much time things are taking, because everything moves slower if somebody doesn't have that same passion for fishing that you do. And in like it or not, it is a male dominated sport. So if you're bringing your wife, girlfriend, whoever, sister, mom, I don't care who it is, and they don't have that same love, don't hurry them. Take the time. They're still at that stage where it's just cool standing in the water in waders and their legs aren't wet. We've forgotten how fascinating little stuff like that is. Like, that's kind of fun, right? Like, oh my God, I'm in the water and I'm not getting wet. I'll be darned. This is crazy, man. Like, hey, what were you telling me about, like, that mending thing again? Like, it's all so new and fresh. And if you embrace that part of it and put fish, I know this is like an age old cliche, it's not about the fish. A little bit of it is. We'd be kidding ourselves if we said it's not all about the fish. A little bit of it is. But it's one fish. It is one fish. And that's going to make you way more patient, because now you have a couple of hours to get that one fish, or 3 or 4 hours. And then when you get that one fish, you get to celebrate it. And then you're like, okay, whatever we did to get that one fish, like, let's attempt to replicate that. And then we hope for two. Maybe we get two, we go for three. But like, backing way off, and I do this just guiding in general. When you start to think about it in a one fish mo, like I do with steelheading, I guided steelhead a lot hard for a lot of years, and especially in challenging water conditions, it was like, hey, let's not worry about the strategy that's going to get us four fish, five fish, six fish, which we might do during really good conditions, which would be like a run and gun mo, fishing very quickly, fishing like very aggressive rigs. It's like, no, let's get one fish. Let's focus on that one fish. That might mean we very carefully walk up to a sensitive piece of water. It might mean we run lighter, more delicate, sensitive rigs to ensure that we're not going to push a fish out of there. But I think if you're going to get your wife into this cold weather fishing, like, you've got to back off a little bit, and you've got to make, like, the effort has to go to one fish, hope for one, go for two, take everything really slow, be extremely patient, and remember that a lot of those little things that we forgot were really cool are really, really cool. And then, yeah, dinner at the grill afterwards. And then don't be afraid to, like, you got to quit when you got to quit. The other day with my wife, she had one goal, and that was not to complain. She didn't complain, but I could see she was cold. We pushed out like the last mile and a half, and just goofed off and joked around. And I've definitely gotten better at how to host that type of trip over the years. Uh, Good question. Uh, I don't know that there's a secret, but there's a strategy. Okay, Brian Moon, do you catch fish in 2 to 3 foot deep water in winter, or are they in the deeper pools? Sorry if this was covered before. Not exactly, not exactly covered before, Brian. We definitely talked about it a little bit, but yeah. So, like, reading winter water in general. So winter fish have to have some type of thermal refuge. They've got to be willing to. They got to have like an escape route to get away. If all of a sudden tonight we get a cold night, it's 15 degrees, those fish can't be trapped up in a little side channel somewhere. They've got to have access to get into these big tanks and these thermal refuges where they have interflow and spring water coming in, generally on the weak inside corners. Like, for us here, or a lot of other rivers, you might have a hard, deep bank, which would be like a riprap bank or a cliff wall. Well, chances are you're probably not going to have interflow and spring fed water on those hard outside shores. Most of that spring water is going to come on the inside ledges, and that water could be 45 degrees coming out of the ground. That's still like, infiltration from spring and summertime that's finally making its way back into the river in the form of an underground creek or spring. And so, generally speaking, those insides are going to offer that. And you're going to have to target, like, as a starting point, yes, we're going to need to target a deeper pool. However, water on a warmer, cloudy day in the winter, even a sunny afternoon in the winter. I said sunny afternoons, don't be deceived. Usually those have colder nighttime temps, and you're going to see a temperature drop. on those sunny days. So don't be fooled just because it looks like it's going to get a little warmer that day. You got to be careful there. That usually won't happen until 3 p.m. on 2:30 or 3 p.m. on is going to be your bite window for those sunny days. Warm sunny days, cold nights. On those warm, cloudy days, you will see those fish move right up to the edges. They will want to get in that shallow water because from noon or 1 on those warmer, cloudy days where the nighttime low didn't dip, that shallow water is going to be warmer. So, absolutely, we're going to see them in those 2 to 3 foot pools, especially in the heads of those bigger tanks. If there's kind of some little ledges and those insides or little slots that are immediately adjacent to, say, you could catch them in an isolated slot that's 2 feet deep. Absolutely, even 18 inches deep. I've even seen fish as little as 12 inches deep in the winter if that shallow water is the warmest. And you can get them in there, but just remember they have to have immediate access to those thermal refuges so they can get down deep in the event we get a really nasty cold night that comes in and tries to freeze them out. Those fish don't like to be cold any more than we do. They're generally going to seek out those more comfortable, warmer areas in the stream. So I think we got to most of the questions. I'm going to do kind of a warning shout out. If there's any more questions for anybody that's on right now, just type that in and I'll hit it if you were waiting for your question to be answered. The last question I had that was written in by Johnny W. Is what put-ins and takeouts are available in the winter in the Yakima Canyon. It really just varies on our ice range. We get these gigantic ice cornices at the end of winter, say from late January on into March. We get giant ice cornices that can be 6 or 8 feet tall. It's one of the most bizarre things you've ever seen. And usually our lower canyon takeouts like Rosa, Mares, Slab are all going to be iced in, sometimes the Luma Creek. And so those are going to get really dicey unless you have like a Watermaster style boat, which gives you access to be able to just take out anywhere down there. Reds is good all winter long. Tandem usually gets pretty icy, so that's a little iffy. Mile marker 19 is a great put into the winter. 20 can get a little bit dicey in bigger snow. Bighorn is usually good all winter long, and Ringer is usually good all winter long. So you just give us a buzz or look at our fishing reports page. We try to keep that pretty well updated. But if you haven't used like our live chat on our website, like if you're coming out, you don't have time to make a phone call or you're hiding in your cubicle looking at fishing stuff, like our live chat is super. I mean, we're on that, especially all winter long. That's how we like to engage with you guys. We want chats, unlike a lot of businesses that don't want your chats. Um, so last question, any tips for winter fishing below dams where water temperatures don't fluctuate much? Uh, Yeah, I mean that's really straightforward. Just dress warm. Most of those fisheries, from what I've seen, I'm going off recollection, but I think the frying pan is one of those. And usually that winter fishing, in tailwaters, uh, tailwater being defined as some type of controlled water temperature tailwater, not a tailwater like we have, which is this river is really just a freestone. Our dam is like 60 miles upstream from here or something like that. It's a long, long way. So we don't really see that controlled temperature outflow. But generally, that's going to be a midge game. And so that's going to be delicate rigs and small flies on those fisheries. But I'm probably not the best guy to speak to that, being as our river is a tailwater, but it doesn't act quite like what you're describing there. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you want to send this to anybody or you're coming on late and you want to jump back and see anything in the front end, take a look at our website. Black Friday sales are hitting daily now with us, and shop at our website and just pay attention to what hits. We're going to have a big launch from some vendor off maps on Friday that are going to go live. So take a look at us mid-morning on Friday, and we'll have a whole bunch of fresh stuff. And then if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you can do that right on our website as well. And then sign up for our texting as well. Our best deals usually will go out by text for SMS text messages. So go over to the website, hit the 10% off thing, and then you can get on the text messaging and the email thing. And that's going to get you the best deals for the Black Friday shopping season. And we really appreciate you tuning in. And this will be recorded. We'll do this again in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for all the great questions and discussion today.